Tichakudzai gwara mafambirero. Tichakudzai zvinotarisirwa tienda mberi.
Unonge vamutulingube vangouya vachingorotomoka vachingobwabwauka vasingabati nyaya dziri kurwadza vanhu muZimbabwe.
This, the free talk.
Finance Minister Mthuli announced a $4.2 trillion budget, and this budget has received its fair share of criticism, fair share of praise. On this, the Free Talk, our first edition in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation since taking a break a few months ago, is going to look at the national budget. We are going to look at the alternatives. Join me after this break. Welcome back to this edition of Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation on HSTV. With me, your host as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. Now we're going to be talking about the budget that was presented by Mthuli, the Finance Minister, and the ruling ZANU-PF. Now we are going to hear from the Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga, his perspective, his views about this budget. And we're going to also hear from Mthuli himself what he thinks about his own budget before we move in to have a conversation with the CCC Vice President Biti, who is going to also give us the alternative. What the CCC could have done. What could they have done better? What are their thoughts on this budget? Here on this, your favorite show, the Free Talk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, and with me, your host, as usual, Dara B. Now let's hear what Mthuli and the Vice President have to say.
Maria tapuwa hii tichazama kuti tishandise nenzira yakanaka yekuti mumwe nemumwe muZimbabwe akwanise kunge achirapwa, nekuti kana chida kusimudza nyika tinongoisimudza chete kune nevanhu vakasimba, tinoisimudza chete nevanhu vanenge vakagwinya. Haugone kuvaka nyika wakarara kumba kana muchipatara. Ndosaka tiri kuti Zimbabwe kutaura kwatenda nguva dzose kuti Zimbabwe inovakwa nevene vayo. Kana chiti inovakwa nevene vayo, chiti iwe neni tine basa, zvinotongobuda chete kana vanhu vakasimba. Saka mari yatapuwa iyi hongu munhu wega wega anenge aida kuti dai anga yaenda pamusoro, asi tinoziva kuti chiri kusimudza upfumi hwedu. Tiri kuenda tichida pashoma nepashoma. Kuvaka nekukwizira kwatenda upfumi ndokusumukawo kunoitawo mari yatoda kutise muzvipatara. Hatisi kungoita kungorapa chete, asi toda kuti tikwanise kuwana mari yekubatsira avo vana mukoti nana chiremba vedu vanoshanda muzvipatara, kuona kuti zvavanoshandisa zviripo here. ivo pabasa ravo vari kufara here nezvatenge tichivaitira kuenda kwavo kumabasa. Naotherwise tiri kutaura nyaya dzetransport yavo, tiri kutaura nenyaya dzimba dzavo, tiri kutaura nenyaya yekuti pavanenge vari kusenza vanenge vakamira vakaita sei.
Of course, we like to mobilize more resources. We run basically a quasi-cash budget system, which is where we use what we've collected for various projects and programs, and with a little bit of borrowing. So really, we are driven by our capacity to raise cash, and so far so good. We have been, financing all government programs that are priority, and I think that we've done very well at that. Of course, ministries get impassioned and so forth. It happens, and they should push, and why not? I would do the same. But we've done our best to make sure that the cash resources that they desire and so wish are given out on time. Inflation is part of the fabric of what we do. If you're in the economic sphere, there will be inflation to deal with, there will be this and that to deal with. Remember, our domestic currency is the Zimbabwe dollar. So we're budgeting in Zimbabwe dollars. We allow transactions to take place also in US dollars. We've been doing that. So there is no issue about budgeting in Zimbabwe dollars with the impact of inflation on that. And our job is to deal with that inflation, and we're dealing with it.
Look, this is 0.5% change. For a start, the average VAT rate in the SADC region is 16%. So even where we were in 2019 at 15%, we're 1% below the average for the region. And we took it down to 14.5% from 15% to support the citizens and the economy due to COVID. Now we've opened up the economy. I think we've tried hard to deal with COVID, and in fact successfully, in fact. And we feel now it is time to take it back where it was at 15%. And it's only a 0.5% increase. It will go a long way in raising adequate resources for government to finance vital programs to support our citizens. So really, we're taking from citizens to give back to citizens. In terms of the above-the-line budget, which excludes things like interest payments and so forth, actually, our health sector allocation is 13%. So it's the same as last year. The figure of 11% that I mentioned has to do with the overall budget of 4.2 trillion, where we include below-the-line items. But look, we've worked very hard, we've tried very hard to meet the target, and we'll continue to do so. We're doing a lot in the health sector, building infrastructure, even remuneration for nurses. We're still losing nurses, that's very sad, but we'll try our best to find a way to retain them. We procure drugs, we're recapacitating our hospitals, upgrading our hospitals. So really we're doing a lot in the health sector, but we also need to find a way to work with the private sector. Have you counted the number of new private hospitals in Harare over the last 2 years? Who has been counting? There are so many, they're mushrooming everywhere. So really it's clear that there is a growth in the health sector, in the private sector. So there's a need to come up with some synergies, maybe a public-private partnership way to work with the private sector, so that if there is no equipment at a public hospital, someone is able to access that service from a private hospital at an affordable cost. So the issue really is about access. It's about access, not so much the availability of the service. Service is available, but at high cost to a citizen. But we need to improve that access, and we as a government are determined to work in that.
Right, now we're crossing over to Tendai Biti, the Vice President and former Finance Minister, who's going to be talking to us. The perspectives. What does this budget mean to you? Why should you care? How will it affect the economy? And how it looks like for us as Zimbabweans in 2023. This is the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Movement Foundation. And I'm your host, Dara B.
I just want to pick your mind on the recent budget by Minister of Finance Mtulingwe. What can we deduce out of that budget?
Structurally, it's a very unsound budget, and I'm talking of
the budget as a technical document, it must meet certain expectations that are consistent with what any first-year economic student who has done applied economics will have an idea. So the first structural difficulty it has is that the budget is founded on the mantra of fighting inflation. And the budget statement celebrates a tight monetary policy that they allege has been responsible for bringing down or stabilizing inflation, and I'll come to that. Yet the budget itself becomes a major driver of inflation. The original budget of 2022 was actually $800 billion. It was then doubled up in the supplementary budget, which we approved as parliamentarians in September of 2022 to 1.8 trillion. This budget is now 4.2 trillion. So the budget itself is an increase in nominal terms of 200%, when the growth rate, the projected growth rate is 3.8%. So if the document was structurally sound from an economic point of view, it means that the budget should have grown by 3.8%, because he anticipates growth to be 3.8%, but it grows by 200%. But if it grows by 200% when it's not supported by a productive base, because the productive base is the 3.8%, it means he's basically saying, I'll be printing money. Broad money supply is going to increase. And when broad money supply increases, what it means in layman's terms is that there's too much paper money chasing too few goods, and the price of goods shoots up. So from that technical point of view, it shows that the guy is clueless. The guy has no idea of what he's doing from purely a technical classroom point of view. On substantive issues, the budget is a mixture of narcissism, cruelty. The budget is a mixture of anti-people measures. The budget is a power retention instrument. It's concerned and intoxicated with the power retention agenda, because we are 10 months to the next election. So I want to deal with the anti-people stance of this budget. The first thing is that the budget is framed in Zimbabwean dollars. Now, when in a country where officially the rate of inflation is 268%, when you frame the budget in a volatile currency, and the Zimbabwean currency is volatile, it means that you are undercutting everyone who is benefiting from that budget, the starting point being the worker. This budget should have been expressed in US dollars, so that the worker is paid in US dollars. After all, government's own revenue streams are now literally 2/3 of in US dollars. The economy is dollarized. Even when I open your pockets right now, you actually have a US dollar, because the economy is self-dollarized. I don't remember the last time I saw an RTGS, dollar note. And once you express the budget in US dollar terms, it then allows you to deal with the distortions around the US dollar, the distortions around the dollarization. The first one is that, of course, you can't control and fix the exchange rate. Liberalize the exchange rate, float the Zimbabwean dollar. Thirdly, eliminate the auction. The auction is an instrument of arbitrage. Fourth, remove export surrender requirements. Fifth, remove and do away with the gold coin, because it's an instrument of arbitrage. So this is basic elementary economics. So once the macroeconomic framework is unsound, that's it. You have lost it completely if you are a minister of finance. The second anti-people measure is the increase in VAT to 15%. Now, VAT is an unequal tax. it's an unprogressive tax because it hits everyone, whether you are a billionaire who stays in Borodor Brook or you are my Ezra who stays in Cholocho, you will still pay 15%. So it's unequal. It affects the poor more than the rich. So increasing VAT to 15% is not only narcissist, but it also shows ideological vacuousness. You don't stand for the people. You don't stand for the citizen. You don't stand for anything. And you're banal, you're empty, and that's the problem with this thing. That also coupled now with the removal of duty-free status on basic commodities. Our people through Malaicha have been going to South Africa to buy basic goods, to Botswana to buy basic goods, to Zambia to buy basic goods. It's Christmas now, to ShopRite in Chimoyo to buy basic goods. So this is Christmas, this is festive season. The only time that Zimbabweans overtaxed, underpaid, jobless, exploited, reified, alienated, exploited, this is the only time that they see their relatives. And you go now, Mutuli Ngube, you go and become the monster, the devil, the imp that removes duty-free on basic commodities. You have to be so anti-people. Third, there are no tax brackets. There are no tax brackets for 2023. There were no tax brackets that were announced. I'm hoping to lay my copy on the actual budget and hoping that but they're so fundamental. And given the fact that inflation has gone up, tax brackets needed to be revised in order to increase the tax-free threshold to take into account inflation. So the absence of the tax-free threshold, the absence of the tax bans is actually technical incompetence. It's actually technical incompetence. The third thing is the unsoundness of the assumptions upon which the budget is based on. Every budget has got underlying assumptions. So when you make a budget, you are making projections. You are like a prophet, but you make your assumptions based on science, based on certain objective things. So he predicts a growth rate of 3.8%. And his underlying assumption is that this growth will be geared on the basis that we'll have full energy. But we don't have energy in the country. Kariba, its water levels are lowering. Wange 7 and 8, even if it comes on board, it's a mere 600 megawatts when demand is 2,000 megawatts, when the real demand is actually 4,000 megawatts. He bases his assumptions on increased global demand. But if you read the IMF's World Economic Outlook, Regional Economic Outlook, next year the world will see a recession. The biggest economy in the world is that of the United States of America. It's teetering on a recession right now. The sixth biggest economy in the world, that of the United Kingdom, is teetering on a recession right now. China is teetering on a recession right now. So to expect global demand of our commodities to be on the up when we have got global demand that is teetering is just a pure fiction. Then of course you've got the war in Russia and Ukraine, which has had a fundamental catalytic effect on the demand of our commodities. But the real issue, Mkoma Blessing, is that the real issue, Dara, is that the economy is in a recession and it is going to shrink to around 0% minus 1%. Why? Because we have increased the cost of money. Borrowing costs are over 200%. Farmers right now are not planting. Business people right now can't work, can't operate. Business is on a freeze because of the high interest rate of 200%. Secondly, you have got the freeze on payments to contractors. And when you fail to pay contractors, there's a multiplier effect because John owes Peter, who owes Brian, who owes Mary, who owes Sylvia, who owes Regina. So if I fail to pay Peter, I failed to pay 20 people, including workers and their families. So the government squeeze on payments to contractors is having a serious multiplier in the economy. It is shrinking the economy. So aggregate demand has collapsed. Mutash of the Retailers Association says aggregate demand has collapsed by 30%. If you go into supermarkets right now, whether it's Pick and Pay, whether it's Bon Marché, whether it's Gumba Cash and Carry, goods are full on the shelves, but no one is picking them up because people have no aggregate demand. So we now have a crisis of overaccumulation. Goods are elsewhere in the shops, but there's no one with money and that only leads to recession. That only leads to shrinkage of the economy. The last aspect is the political nature of this budget. Education is underfunded. The figure he gave yesterday was 11%. The Abuja declaration is health is underfunded. The Abuja declaration is 15%. Education is underfunded. The things that are overfunded are the securocratic arms of the state. The things that are overfunded is agriculture. Why agriculture? Because food inputs have been weaponized and they'll be used to try and steal the people's vote in 2023. So all in all, it's a very sad budget, a very technically unsound budget, a very dishonest budget, a very anti-people budget, a very cruel budget, a very narcissistic budget, a very sadistic budget.
But you say this is anti-people, but in the budget, the 4.2 trillion budget, most of it is going to salaries. And doesn't that also reflect a 200% increase in salaries if the previous budget was smaller and it has grown by 200? I mean, it follows.
If you do the calculations, on the nominal increase of the wage bill, it's actually 42%. But this is 42% on the Zimbabwean dollar, when the real inflation is 500%. Actual inflation is around 368%. So it doesn't make any sense. And as long as you are not going to pay the civil servant in US dollars, there's nothing you are doing. You better sit at block B6 in the Ministry of Finance. It's a waste of time. That budget is not worth the paper it is written on.
But also the budget puts more money, the money that is available, puts more money in the Ministry of Health. Is this not a shift? Because
the Ministry of Health got 11%. The Ministry of Health is 11% of the budget, when the Abuja declaration says it must be 15%. So health is underfunded. And when you unpack that health budget, most of the salary, the money is going to wages, not drugs, not machines, not cancer machines. So it's a waste of time, Dara Blessed.
What should have been done better? Because you okay, maybe before I go to what should have been done better, what do you see in the budget that was a positive move from the past?
I think apart from the fact that the presentation was short, so we were not bored by a diatribe of 3 hours, I don't see anything positive, with great respect.
The ruling government, the government in office right now has claimed, I mean, we not really claimed, but we have seen that there have been a lot of new business coming in. There's exploration of gas. There's the Manize steel project. Aren't those big projects going to drive demand and drive production for this country to stabilize our currency?
You can't mortgage the country. You can't sell off the country. So the two investments you have mentioned in particular should have been done on the basis of special mining leases. A special mining lease is covered by Section 139 of the Mines and Minerals Act. So before you get that license, you must prove that you actually have 100 million US dollars. But in order for the country to get value, those assets, those deposits should have been auctioned off so that we get the highest bidder. If I look at Manize, a few years ago during the government of national unity, ESA came into Zimbabwe and tried to buy Zisco steel and made a claim to those iron ore steel and put $1 billion US dollars on the front for the benefit of Zimbabwe. In other words, $1 billion US dollars was going to the coffers of Zimbabwe. These agreements have not been tabled before Parliament. So no one knows whether they $100 million US for the special mining lease consistent with Section 139. How much has it been put? How much is Zimbabwe going to benefit? So you are going to see a case of a Dutch disease, a situation where the country is so rich, it has got 63 minerals, and these investors are going to come into Zimbabwe in their thousands, but the country remains poor because those who are cutting these deals are cutting for their own pockets, their own dirty pockets, and the country is not benefiting. That's why these agreements are not being tabled before a parliament. So there's a call for economic justice, there's a call for full disclosure of these agreements, there's a call for full disclosure of these assets, including the privatizations which we have seen across the length and breadth of Zimbabwe. The Beitbridge border post, which I'm told is now ready, was constructed at the cost of US $200 million. I was Minister of Finance for once upon a time. I know that it should have cost $40 million US, but these things are not being subjected to parliamentary scrutiny. They've constructed 340 kilometers worth of road from Beitbridge to Harare. It costs an average $1 million US a kilometer. We are being told, and because the agreements have not been tabled before Parliament, we are being told that those contractors are being paid the equivalent of $3 million US, albeit in local currency. That's why they've stopped paying them, because when they pay, it floods the market and the rate goes up. So the opaqueness of these agreements raises more questions than answers. What is Zimbabwe getting? What are private individuals getting? And why are these agreements, for Christ's sake, not being tabled before the Augusta House, now located in Mount Upton?
Minister Mtulingwe set aside 1.1 trillion for projects and for funding, infrastructure development. Now, is that not pro-people? Because this is bringing infrastructure to the people, this is creating jobs, this is creating the production that you're talking about.
My point exactly. Don't create projects for self-enrichment. Create projects that will benefit Zimbabwe. So you can construct a 500-kilometer road, but if Zimbabwe is paying 4 or 5 times what it ought to be paying, you are stealing from people. You are burdening children that have not been born today because you are increasing the debt burden. The official debt, according to yesterday's budget, is $18 billion US. I don't know that the local debt is around 3 trillion dollars. That includes the $2.5 billion US owed to farmers. In our own calculations, the actual debt of Zimbabwe is $42 billion dollars. That means if we are 14 million, each one of us owes over $1 million. But why should I pay a debt for people who are driving fancy cars, people who are cutting hills in Chishawasha hills to build houses where engineering says it's impossible because they are stealing from Zimbabwe? They are driving Lamborghinis, they are driving Ferraris. Go and see them parked at Sam Levy's village. So the bottom line is that I drive a Honda Fit. The bottom line is that don't. Who are you? So the bottom line is that we want gross capital formation, but we want what is best for Zimbabweans. So it's unfair kuti mwana asati azvarwa izvezvi ane chikwere $1 million. Anozvarwa musoro wakazvimba, mai vofunga kuti mwana ane mvura musoro nenhova, iro akazvimba nechikwereti chevarume ava. It's not fair, it's not right, it's immoral, and that debt is odious.
What should have been done better? What do you think should have been done to make this?
If it was us, we would have presented a $4 billion US budget in US dollar terms. Number 2, we would have ensured that civil servants are paid in US dollars. Number 3, we would have addressed the exchange rate distortion by doing the following 3 things. Number 1, kill the auction immediately. 2, remove export surrender requirements. 3, remove the gold coin. 4, float the Zimbabwean the Zimbabwean dollar. Number 3, we would have tried to give incentives to the productive sector so that we can produce, so that our GDP can grow. And the following incentives would be on the table. Number 1, scrap the intermediated money transfer tax. 2, reduce the levels of taxation in Zimbabwe, both personal tax and individual tax. And corporate tax, reduce it to a flat rate of 15 percent. 3, establish a framework of transparency, particularly around our commodities, and this would entail joining EITF, the Extractive Industry Transparency International. Any investor coming into our minerals must get a license from ZIDA. Number 2, we must look at this balance sheet. Number 3, there must be competitive bidding of our minerals. You want a mining license on lithium in Bikita? Let's have an auction. Let's have an auction. May the best man or woman, may the best company, win. The commodities can actually drive this economy. We can actually build not a $20 billion economy around minerals, a $100 billion economy around minerals. But the precondition is honesty. The precondition is transparency. Number 4, we would have put real money into the social services. In particular, the health budget must meet the Abuja declaration. The education budget must be at least 20% of the total budget. Then, of course, social services would have proposed grants to the poor. Would have proposed grants to the vulnerable, maybe $40 per month, maybe $50 per month, maybe $100 per month, depending on the affordability of the budget. But social grants are so key. Number 4, would have made the cost of money cheap. Would have made the cost of money cheap in an economy like such as ours. You can't sell money at 200% because you are killing industry. So part of the incentive to industry is to reduce the cost of money. And as part of reducing the cost of money is to create a savings culture. There are no savings in Zimbabwe. There are no pension funds with money. Any developing economy must have savings which are at least 25% of GDP. We have zero. We have nada. Then would have put a lot of money on gross capital formation. A lot of money on gross capital formation. And in this regard, and the budget was quiet on this, it is so important for Zimbabwe to make peace with the IFIs, in particular the World Bank, where we owe $2 billion, the African Development Bank, where we owe around $600 million, the Paris Club of Lenders, where we owe around $5.4 billion. There's cheap money that is sitting at the African Development Bank. There are grants worth over $75 billion for poor little countries like Zimbabwe that are sitting at the World Bank. The original name of the World Bank was the International Bank for Reconstruction, the IBRC, the International Bank for Reconstruction. So the World Bank was recreated as a post-war institution to rebuild the post-war world. So we are not able to access that because we have no plan on debt. We have no plan on how to deal with our arrears so that we are readmitted in the family of IFIs, the World Bank, the African Development Bank. So we would have concentrated a lot of energy on ensuring that we deal with our debt, because debt is a development issue, and because we don't have friends, we don't have access to cheap money that is held in the IFIs. We're having to borrow in expensive territories from people like the African Export Bank that are charging us premiums of 20%, 30% on the US dollar. So gross capital formation facilitated by a permanent solution to the debt crisis would have been. Then the next thing is the land question. The budget ought to have addressed the land issue and agriculture, and you can't address it without dealing with the supply side challenge of the land question. What is the supply side of challenge to the land question, people have no title deeds. And if you don't have title deeds and you're a farmer, it means you can't hypothecate that farm. You can't go to the land bank, to CBZ, to Stanbic, to Barclays Bank to borrow because you have no collateral. And without collateral, you're not a farmer. And you have to wait for command agriculture. You have to wait for dependency. And as long as you are dependent on the state, you will not produce. That's why Malawi, which puts $85 million on agriculture, is producing 3 times Zimbabwe, which puts $6 billion on agriculture because of the dependency culture of our agricultural model. It's a failed model. It doesn't work. Apart from the subsidies, we also control the prices of commodities. GMB controls the price of commodities. No one right now is delivering wheat to GMB. No one is delivering maize to GMB because which farmer will accept $90 and $76,000 when it costs around $250 for a hectare of maize? It doesn't make sense, Dara Blessed. It's cockeyed economics. It's voodoo economics by an incompetent, tired elite.
But you speak about the tax on all electronic transactions. What would be your appetite to remove it when it's happening in most countries?
We used to have it before the 1st of September 2018 when Mtuli put it at 5%. You see, it's a very unequal tax. 5% is a lot of money. It's a very unequal tax and it hurts the poor. So imagine you are a pensioner and you are told that you don't have 5%. Also, it encourages the savings because no one would want to transact through a bank because judges are just eating up that money. You have got a bank account. How many times have you been called by the bank to say, Mariaku yapera, Mariaku agusina? So it's an unprogressive tax which creates more harm than benefit.
But it puts money in the fiscus.
Economics is an ecosystem.
Mtuli says he's taking money from the people and giving it back to the people.
The consequences are more harmful. That's why no government in the last 40 years until Mtuli Ngube has seriously employed that. All unprogressive taxes are destructive. They kill the capacity of the individual to reproduce himself. They hit the pocket of the poor, and once the pocket of the poor has nothing, there's no aggregate demand. The rich don't spend money. The marginal propensity of the rich is very low. The marginal propensity to consume is very low. It is the poor who drive economy because they spend their money. So you can't hit their economy. You can't hit their pockets. You can't hit the pensioner. You can't hit the teacher. Because when you hit the teacher, you are hitting the core of the economy. Go to Borodale, Pick and Pay. Go to Borodale, Bonmache. Okay, Marimba is making more money than okay Borodale, called Bon Marché, because of the different class levels, what economists call the marginal propensity to consume.
Is it not because there are more people in Marimba than in
the marginal propensity to consume? If someone has got $1 million and you remove 10,000, you have done nothing. The marginal propensity to consume is low. But if someone earns $400, he is going to spend all of it. And when he spends all of it, it comes to the state. That's why I'm for grants, because the state will get those grants back anyway. Because if I pay your grandmother in Cholocho $100, she's going to spend. She's going to buy a blanket. She's going to buy a Mazoe orange. She's going to buy a pap. That's how it works. That's basic economics.
The government is trying to encourage the use of the local currency. The budget says that people must be encouraged. I mean, is it not noble to ensure that Zimbabweans continue to use their own local currency so that at least we can control the monetary aspects of our economy?
They talk left and walk right. They talk left and walk right. Every government charge now is now in US dollars. Every government charge is now, whether it's passport. Only last week they passed statutory instruments that says high court fees, magistrate court fees, most of the high court fees are now all in US dollars. Number plates all in US dollars. Toll gates all in US dollars. Only last week they passed the statutory instrument that says all cars, whether you are local or not, passing through Byte Bridge, you pay US dollars. So they can't say normatively we want to encourage the use of the local currency, when on the right, everything that they do is now in US dollars. It's just crazy. It's just ridiculous. That's why I have no respect to this government, because it's hypocritical, it's incompetent, it's ideologically empty, it's ideologically vacuous, it's banal and a banality.
The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission was given 74 billion to run the elections. Do you think that's enough? Does it make sense in the delivery of democracy?
If you use an exchange rate of 1:1,000, it's $74 million. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. A normal decent election should cost around $60 million US. But with ZEC, it's a time to eat. It's our time to eat, so they inflate everything. So I found in the past that an average Zimbabwean election will cost nearly $200 million, but a lot of that is just fed for the boys. It's just fed for the boys. But you can run an election, a clean election, with $60 million US. So to the extent that $74 million US has been given, it's a lot of money. But this is Zimbabwe. It won't be enough, and I can assure you that come mid next year, Mutuli is going to come before Parliament with a supplementary budget.
Now, what do you project would be for our economy in the coming year? What is your projection?
I've already argued that we're in a recession.
I wanted us to put this into perspective, looking at our currency, whether it's going to hold, whether this currency is going to hold as we go into 2023.
Yeah, so let me make my predictions. I think that growth rate will be below 1% to -1%. I think that year-on-year inflation in 2023 will be around 800%. I think that the exchange rate by June of 2023 will be around 1,500%. Please record this and check whether Prophet Biti is correct.
Do you think we're going to go into elections using the local currency?
No. The economy is already dollarized. The economy is already dollarized fully. So they'll continue with the mantra and the fiction that the Zimbabwean dollar is real, but for all intents and purposes, everything will be dollarized, including nomination fees for candidates to ZEC. They will be in US dollars. They are already in US dollars.
But what is the appetite? What is the reason behind continuing to hold the Zim dollar to be alive?
It's corruption, it's arbitrage. They are making billions of dollars from the commodification of the US dollar. They are making billions of dollars because there is a gap between the official exchange rate and the unofficial exchange rate, and they benefit from that. So if you look at the auction system is pumped into the system around $3.4 billion US from inception. Until recently, until the last few months where they've tried to marry the two rates, the auction was selling US dollars at around $80 to $83. But 4th Street was around 200, 300. There was a premium of over 200%. They are pocketing because those who have been accessing money at the auction floor are the who is who of ZANU-PF. So they access the US dollar at 1:84, and then they go and sell it at 1:400, 1:700 US dollar. So it's that arbitrage. The same applies to the gold coin. They are buying the gold coin at an exchange rate of 1:400, but the real exchange rate is now close to 1,000. So the de-dollarization process is simply an engine for extraction, for looting a Zimbabwe. That is why they've maintained it. They are killing and lining up their pockets because of the arbitrage brought by the difference between the official exchange rate and they're good economists in the Ministry of Finance. They're good economists at the Ministry of Finance. They know that it's elementary. When you create an arbitrage, you create rent-seeking behavior. And the country suffers, the poor suffer. So they are doing this deliberately because they are the beneficiaries of this arbitrage.
Mutuli actually reduced the MITT tax when you are transacting your foreign currency into local currency. Do you think that would encourage banking in Zimbabwe?
Absolutely not. It's still 2% on the US dollar. And remember, When that money goes into your account, you have already paid taxes on it. It's a salary, you've already paid tax on it. So why are you now being made to pay extra tax? And remember, part of this money is money that your aunt has sent you from North Carolina, where I saw you drinking a whiskey. That money would have come from your sister in Guangzhou province, China, saying, Baba, Chimbojgayo pa Christmas up. And then someone takes 2% on the US dollar. It's criminal. That's why I said it needs to be scrapped and scrapped in total.
But how then does business function if I spoke to one hotelier who told me that the cost of payments, the cost of money is eating around 4% of their total budget, yearly budget. 4% is going to the 2% electronic money transfer is going to buying money and stuff like that. How is this affecting?
Yeah, that person you spoke to must actually be either in the construction industry, where the movement of money is not in high volumes. For people that are in the real estate sector, where there's so much volatility and movement of transactions, you have to buy bread, you have to buy cooking fat, you have to whatever, high value consumer moving goods, the cost of money is around 20%. So you simply have to shut down. Just on charges, alone. So it's criminal. If you look at the bank statements, if you look at bank balance sheets, their last quarter results, so their third quarter results, they all declared profits that are over 80%, 100%. But 75% of their income is coming from non-interest income. In other words, they are not making money from selling money, which is interest. They are making money from these charges, these surreptitious, charges. And no one can run business like that. It's a choking environment. This is why you've seen capital flight. This is why you've seen the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange collapse by over 2,000%. All the counters are down, including the blue chip counters, Delta, Econet, and PPC. They're all down because it's not an environment where you can do business and reproduce yourself. And the person who ultimately suffers is the worker, because companies are closing, and the workers have been very sympathetic. Otherwise, we would have seen wild strikes. But the workers know that whatever is happening is not created by the employer. It's created by a hostile, toxic, voodoo macroeconomic environment.
To what extent is the economy going to have an effect on the electoral outcome in 2023?
I think it's going to have a big impact. I think people are, tired. People look nostalgically to the GNU. So the economy will be a major issue in the minds of the electorate next year. I saw a teacher who worked for 32 years and was given a dish with $2 bought from Gulf in downtown Harare Market Square. It's a crime. Dara blessed. It's a crime. God is not happy if you mistreat his people like that. So I think the economy will be a major focus next year, which is why they are killing this economy by a very restrictive monetary policy so that they can go to the election and say inflation is low. But you don't cure diarrhea by stitching your backside, because that's essentially what they're doing. Stop paying the contractors, but you're going to pay them. And when you pay them, it will implode. And they want money, they're going to take you to lawyers very soon. It's terrible economics, it's voodoo economics, it's insane economics, it's unprecedented economics. And for a professor of economics to do this thing, those who awarded him degrees are considering taking back those degrees. I'm quite sure of it.
But he's come up with brilliant ideas, hasn't he? He's brought in the gold coins, and now they're in smaller denominations, and they've helped somewhat stabilize the runaway exchange rate that was happening in the country. I mean, you should give him credit for that.
The gold coin is an instrument of arbitrage. The gold coin is an instrument of arbitrage. They've sold gold coins that are 9.2 billion, almost 10 billion. But they've bought the gold that was used to mint the gold coins. They've spent about 18 billion. They've spent about 18 billion where they've gotten 10 billion. Who is getting this 8 billion? It's them. It's the arbitrage. It's arbitrage. So everything that they do is about lining up their pockets. Lining up their pockets. And that is the problem. With Mugabe, you knew the equation. It was about power and power retention. With these people, it's about their pockets, and the power is just an instrument to make sure that they continue eating, to make sure that they continue feeding. But you can't continue feeding on a little body that is tired, that is exhausted, that has no fat. That is the Zimbabwean economy. You can't continue stealing from my Ezra in Chendambuya. You can't continue stealing from a headmaster, Peter Chimbodza. You know, that's what they're doing. They're stealing from the working people. So the working people are supporting this huge, insatiable mouth, this huge, insatiable belly. You know, it's not sustainable at all. It's not sustainable at all.
Maybe as we close, Mr. Biti, I saw you sitting next to Douglas Mwanzara in Parliament.
I was just placed there by Parliament staff, because remember it was the first time, so I almost had a heart attack. You know, but I couldn't move. You know, I couldn't move because I was put there by parliamentary staff. And the worst thing was he was clapping to everything. And you know, I said myself,
and you had a conversation, the three of you, Chief Charumbira, Douglas Mwanzara, and yourself. What could you share? Someone?
Yeah, Chief Charumbira was basically saying that. As president of PAP, he's being called to help in African conflict zones. That in February he's going to go to Abuja, Nigeria, to sort some issues, and that he's just recently been to Ethiopia, dealing with the Ethiopian crisis. Some will say the Tigrayan crisis. So he was basically saying that Zimbabweans should dialogue, and that the doors of traditional leaders, and his door in particular, is open to facilitate dialogue. I thought those were words of maturity. I thought those were words of wisdom. And I'm glad that Chief Charumbira recognizes that there's a crisis in Zimbabwe which requires dialogue. So I thank him for those wisdom, Chief Charumbira.
And then your pictures also in Parliament, and those of the CCC members of Parliament made rounds on social media, and that you have previously been boycotting the president's speech, the SONA, but you presented yourself to the new Parliament building, which some say your party was not happy with the particular building. Why did you go there?
I think you must make a disconnection between MDC Alliance and CCC. CCC was only announced on the 24th of January in the year of our Lord 2022. And it its first juridical act, the nomination court that set on the 26th of January 2022. So we have no connection with that. We are CCC, and we've never boycotted anything. The State of the Nation is a national event. It's a state event, just like Heroes and Independence. And we are not going to allow ZANU-PF to occupy national events, because we are patriots. We are nationalists, we are citizens of this country. So we will occupy, notwithstanding that we have our fights on issues of legitimacy, but we will go to independence, we will go to Heroes, because Zimbabwe is larger than all of us.
And maybe lastly, just words coming from you, what would you want to tell the people of Zimbabwe?
I think let's brace for a great winter of discontent. Things are going to get very difficult, particularly on the economic front. But there is always a darkness before dawn. Change is coming. 2023 will bring happiness. Mukomana kupinda. So tichajabula in 2023. So let's remain firm, let's remain disciplined, let's remain peaceful, let's remain loving each other. And let's pray. God is in it. There will be change in 2023.
You know, I'd want us to talk about Job Scala just for a moment.
It's a very sad situation. It's an extremely sad situation. I listened to the judgment. I was in court when Magistrate Biti read a judgment. I think we should say no to judicial overreach. Statements that because Job has been arrested and remanded 60 times means that he is an incorrigible criminal are uncalled for and totally unacceptable. Statements that the only reason why there's now peace and stability in Nyatsime is because Job is inside are uncalled for. I went to law school. Bail is such a basic concept. To politicize and weaponize bail as if it's a subject of jurisprudence of a PhD thesis is just regrettable. We shouldn't weaponize the law. The law should remain autonomous, and the citizen should feel that when he or she goes to court, the law will treat him equally. The law will treat him fairly. The citizen mustn't feel that law is for others. Is for others, the Wajijenas of this world, the Mike Chimombes of this world, but not for the job scholars of this world, not for the Tendai Bitis of this world, not for the Amos Chibayas of this world, not for the Dara Blessed of this world, not for the Wopo Chingonos of this world. It's not on, it's not acceptable.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tendai Biti, for joining us here on this, the Free Talk, proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, and I, your host as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. Now, we were talking about the economy, we were talking about the budget that was just announced by the Minister of Finance, Thuli Ncube, and this was coming from the former Finance Minister, Tendai Biti, and who is also the Vice President of the CCC, the CCC, the Yavanoti Party Command. Thank you very much.